Hey, love. Welcome to No Matcha, No Mama, the podcast where we pour a little matcha and a whole lot of truth. Every week, I sit with someone I admire, founders, healers, creatives, and friends, and we share a matcha I've crafted just for them. Everything here is intentional. The ingredients in your cup, the energy that we bring, the stories that we open. But this is more than just a podcast. It's a space for feeling seen, understood, and reminded that whatever you are walking through, you are not walking through it alone. At its heart, the show is about exploring how we can truly thrive through all the mess and magic of being human. There's also space to explore the evolving world of longevity and aging well, from new discoveries, treatments, and practices that actually make a difference in our lives so that we can keep showing up for ourselves, our families, and our communities, while remembering that we are all figuring it out as we go. And here we start with matcha, because how we start matters. Hi.
Hi.
Today I'm sitting with Ali Ofstedal. I didn't want to butcher your last name.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Whose work lives at the intersection of astrology, the nervous system, and the embodied awareness, which I find to be fascinating because I knew nothing about this until we had a conversation. Yeah. And Ali has a way of translating astrology out of the abstraction and into the learned experience. So not as something to analyze or predict, but something to feel, integrate, and move through consciously. Her approach is grounded, intuitive, and deeply rooted in the body, offering a perspective that feels especially relevant in a time when so many of us are holding back more than ever before. And I'm really excited to share this conversation and let her wisdom speak for herself. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Yeah, it's so lovely.
Yeah.
To be here with you.
So in the morning, every day, I have a matcha, and that's my ritual. I was wondering if there's something that you do every morning to start your day that's your ritual.
It's a good question. I love matcha, but my nervous system is I'm going through like an upgrade with that. So no caffeine for me at the moment. I love...
How are you doing with that? Are you getting headaches? Because honestly, when I cut caffeine out, it's really bad.
Yeah. Well, I've been cutting it out since 2022. So yeah, it's wild. I had COVID.
It's been
yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Years.
I know.
Holy
that
crap.
Feels like 2 years, but it's actually, I think 4, which is insane. Or 3.5. I know. It's crazy. Yeah. So I had COVID and I had a really intense case of COVID in 2022.
Okay.
And I had to cut it out because I was just like not consuming anything. And I ended up getting vertigo. And it was
from COVID?
Yeah. And it was an awful case of vertigo. It was like 3 weeks and I couldn't do anything. Like I couldn't drive. I could barely walk. It was so bad. Yeah, it was really bad. And it makes sense because COVID was affecting the olfactory nerve and the other nerves which affect vertigo are located in that area too. So it was wild. But what I realized is that now when I have caffeine, the vertigo comes back. So I haven't quite figured out the science behind it.
So you literally can't drink it because it makes you feel terrible.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't make you a matcha. I made you a mint tea. I'm drinking one with you.
I'm so grateful. Thank you. This is beautiful. Yeah. It smells so nice.
Oh my. So you drink any sort of caffeine?
Mm-hmm. Coffee specifically gives me more of a reaction. And I think there's an energetic
more caffeine
piece.
In it.
There's more caffeine.
I can't drink coffee either. That's why I drink matcha.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've tested it, I've tested a little matcha here and there and it just it's just not resonating. So, we'll see. But yeah, for my rituals, I love like mineralizing first thing in the morning. So I do warm lemon water with like a really good salt.
Which salt do you use?
Right now I usually use real salt. Right now I'm using I think
I've heard of it before.
Yeah, it's like a Celtic sea salt. It's like in a blue package, but it's like really chunky and like almost oily. It's so good. But that feels great in the morning for me because I need something warm and kind of orienting.
Have you tried like cacao to see if that has the same effect?
It does.
Damn.
I know. I can't even do chocolate really. I know.
That's very upsetting.
It is. It's really sad. Yeah. I can have like a little bit of chocolate. Like I made chocolate chip cookies for my partner's birthday and I had a little chocolate in that and it was okay. But it's like anything, cacao is so pure.
Anything that's a little bit stimulating.
Got
it.
Yeah.
That's just so nuts.
I know. It's really nuts. I also think too, I've gone through such a huge nervous system recalibration.
Okay,
over
can
the
we
last
talk
few
about
years.
it?
Yeah.
Because that seems like something.
It's big.
So I was going to ask you, how did you get into astrology and what's your background? But let's talk about that, because that seems like a great topic to start with.
Yeah. Yeah. So I believe, like, you know, when we're space holders, we get initiated into the work in different layers and deeper ways all the time, you know? So for me personally, really embodying the work is everything, you know? So I have gone through such a huge purification process and recalibration of my nervous system, and just like getting into the deepest layers of where I'm operating from, what's there, the trauma that's there. This past year, I guess it was, so fall of 2025, I went through an upgrade is the only way I can describe it. It was like I was having panic attacks. I took a thyroid supplement that I shouldn't have taken that totally spiked my thyroid, but I started having panic attacks. But that panic, the piece of that panic that was there, had been there for so long.
It was just kind of like stagnant.
Yeah, it was stagnant. It was hidden. It was definitely informing me on a really deep level.
But you couldn't see it.
I couldn't see it. And I was like, oh, I got over that. I had flight anxiety in my early 20s, and I just moved through it and gotten over it. And so I was like, oh, that panic it's gone. You know, it doesn't exist anymore. But then what I realized is that it needed to be met, you know, in this next layer of my work, of life, of what I want to do. And so I started having panic attacks in August of 2025.
How often?
It was bad. It was like
every day?
Yeah, I was having them. I couldn't be alone for like 3 weeks. It was just so weird because I'm a very independent person. I love being alone.
That sounds really
I'm
intense.
An introvert. It was really, really, really intense. It was insane.
So if you were alone, they would kind of get triggered more so?
It was like this experience of
too many questions.
I mean, it's so helpful because what I realized is that so many people experience these. And to a different degree, you know, it's a spectrum, but mine were happening when I felt it was basically this association with feeling out of control, which I think a lot of panic comes from that, but also this feeling of if I'm alone. So it's like a deep, deep sense of isolation and abandonment. And like, I was able to track it back to not only some major surgeries I had as a kid. I had basically brain surgeries at 7 and 8 that were really, really intense.
What?
I have something called a Chiari malformation.
What is that?
So it's basically where the cerebrum is getting pressed in by the skull. So the skull is creating essentially like a hernia, and the cerebrum is pulling out from the bottom and compressing the cerebral spinal fluid. So it creates this stagnation of spinal fluid, and then that can oftentimes create a syrinx, or like a pocket filled or a fluid filled pocket in the spine, which then can create a scoliosis, which was my case. I had a really significant scoliosis that my mom found.
Like when you were born?
I think it was
or developed over time.
Yeah. So it can be genetic, I believe. It can also be caused by birth trauma, like something that happens in, birth, in the birthing experience. I was a C-section, so that could be part of it. But it basically creates, it can create a significant scoliosis, which I had. And my mom found it because my clothing was a little warped on the clothing line. So she was hanging out the clothes to dry on the line and noticed my shirts, like little 7-year-old shirts, were like they were like pulling, they were a little warped. So my scoliosis was creating this shape in my body that was then changing how my clothing looked. So it was a pretty significant scoliosis. And then once it was identified, I'm in these doctor's office.
How many brain surgeries did you have?
I had one major brain surgery, and it was more on the brain stem, but really up in the occipital area, essentially. So it was really, really kind of intense. And it was early on. It was 1996, I believe. So they're doing a lot of the surgeries now. They're called decompression surgeries. A lot of people are having those, but I think back then it was a newer surgery. So that was my first surgery. And then the second one was actually in my spine, and it was to put a shunt, like a little tube, to drain the spinal fluid through that syrinx area, that pocket of fluid.
What would have happened if they didn't perform the surgery?
Well, I was incredibly lucky because usually this isn't discovered until late teens typically for people, which is really unfortunate because by that point in time, people are having really intense headaches. There's a lot of neurological issues that can occur, like dizziness, fainting.
So good on your mom.
So good. My parents were amazing and just so, doing their best to stay informed. And we lived in a really small town, so we had to travel to go to the hospital. And, it was just, there were all of these other family issues happening at the same time. So for me as a little person, I was developing this pattern of overfunctioning, of over responsibility, of parentification, because I wanted to contain myself in a way that didn't put pressure on my parents, because I could just feel really highly sensitive person. I could feel that I could feel their fear, and their uncertainty. And I could feel that they had so much else going on and other aspects of life that I was like, I'm just going to shrink myself as much as I can to make this as contained as possible, And I think with that, it really developed this whole relational patterning throughout my life. And it also developed this, this panic and this feeling of being really alone in really scary situations, and not having.
So it started then. The panic started when you were a little girl.
It actually didn't. I mean, not that I can remember. The first expression of it was when I was 18. And so that was the first panic attack I'd had. And it existed before then.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It was like in you before. It originated when you were little.
Yeah. And I think it actually originated maybe even before that, maybe even in utero,
Or a past life, maybe.
Yeah, in a past life. I mean, any of it. It's so possible. I think what I believe is that we have these imprints that we're here to work on, and that's what astrology can tell us too, is like, what are we here to work on? What pieces and parts are we here to really evolve through,
Do you think that helped inform you to get into astrology, or how did you get into astrology?
So for me, I kind of lived with this like general anxiety and panic that was in my system, most of my life. And then I had, in my 20s, I started having physical issues. Like I had a lot of pain in my back. I had a lot of pain in my diaphragm, like a lot of tightness. Like I couldn't get a deep breath, which was, now knowing and understanding somatics and the nervous system is just a compression of the diaphragm. And having those experiences really brought me into embodiment work. Like I knew that I couldn't ignore it anymore. And actually my dog, got sick and he started having these masses on his toes, which is so weird because he was really young. And so we found out he had this rare form of cancer. And so I was having to drive him up to this university hospital to get treatments and to get surgery and things like that. And it was just so, I think what it did is it really rocked me down to that attachment level, that I'm talking about with the panic, is like attachment, isolation, abandonment. And I realized there was so much there that I was holding and carrying that he was then mirroring, in his own system. And I think animals really do hold so much for us, and are such deep teachers in that way. And so for me, it was, like I was brought into it through my own lived experiences, which I think is common for so many of us, like not having a choice, just having to go, head first, dive into it. And so, for me, it was I was working in recruiting actually in my early 20s, which was so interesting now looking back at what I do now, but really so fascinated by how people are wired, really understanding how they're wired, what makes them do what they do, what makes them a good fit for certain positions. And that brought me into different work connected to like personality tests and things like that. And then I'd always been interested in astrology, but then astrology just landed and it literally downloaded into me. Like it was crazy. I was having a session with another astrologer and I remember he told me, he's like, if you don't step into this work, your life will implode. And and I was like, okay, that seems extreme. But then it started happening. It literally started happening. Like it was.
What started happening?
My life started falling apart.
Oh.
Yeah.
How
and it was, I could just feel that there was this calling. I could feel this like deep cellular level change that was occurring. And I went through a divorce. So I realized my whole life I was living. It was like one day the lights turned on and looking back, it was Mars transit that had activated in my chart. So I knew I had this, it was my awakening moment, you know, and I realized this life that I had created was created for an older version of me, you know, was created for this person who was terrified of abandonment, was terrified of being fully in her power, was afraid of really looking at certain aspects of my history and my past. And so, yeah, I decided.
How long had you been married for?
I was married for 3 years. We were together for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
So it was pretty, I mean, I was divorced on my 30th birthday. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I mean, wild to be in that sort of reckoning at that age, you know, of just like having to totally.
I mean, better to figure it out sooner rather than later than waste more time in something that wasn't meant for you.
Yeah, totally. And I think too, having just the awareness that being more authentic, connecting more with ourselves, really trusting God, source, the process is everything. And then we're always guided, you know?
Yeah.
And it was a big leap of faith. Like I left a life that was so comfortable and so safe and so contained for a total unknown timeline, you know? And then I moved out to California alone with my dog. And it was such a journey, but it was so empowering to know that I could do that, you know, and that I could honestly trust the process in such a deep way. And I think that that really led me into astrology and understanding more about how people are wired, the psychology behind it, and then how to utilize it as sort of a roadmap for understanding what's happening and why, in an empowering way, rather than a way that feels karmic or fated. You know, it's more so like, how can we work with this to really feel embodied and empowered in our life choices?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when astrology is embodied rather than intellectualized, what actually changes in how a person experiences a transit?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that how I see astrology is it's just literally a map of the weather or the climate, essentially. So what's happening in the sky is the weather, you know, it's the energetic weather. And so our own personal chart, of course, is an imprint of who we are. It holds all of our personality traits. It holds all of our blueprint, you know, our imprinting of who we are and what we came here to do. And then when we think about working with the transits, with what's happening right now, I feel like moving from an embodied way allows you to really move with it rather than against it, you know? So it's like, it's understanding that we have choice and we have agency in how we choose to respond. Now, we also have a lot of unconscious patterns that run, you know, which is, you know, 95% of our reality is a projection of our unconscious, you know, of our subconscious. And so a lot of it's unconscious, a lot of our actions. And so the idea behind embodied astrology is to bring more consciousness to light, essentially, so that we can make choices that feel more conscious, that we feel more embodied, that feel more empowered. So moving from a space of awareness, of empowerment, rather than moving from a space of, oh, this is just how it is, and I just have to, you know, kind of like ride the wave. You know, it's like, oh, I actually have choice and agency here. I don't have to just, you know, do what everyone else is doing. I can actually choose a different pathway that is creating a new pattern rather than an old one.
So in your work, how do you recognize the difference between someone metabolizing a transit consciously versus unconsciously acting it out?
Yeah. One, I think it starts with self-awareness. So it literally is understanding the self and understanding how we're wired, understanding where we're operating from, what's held within our subconscious, I think is the first layer of that. And then allowing that to be our blueprint. So the more we understand ourselves, how we're wired, what makes us do what we do, why we're choosing what we're choosing, then we're able to act from, like I said, a space of more consciousness, of more light, of more embodiment. So I always say that we're either operating from a wound or our higher self. And we're always oscillating between those two. We have many different parts that are functioning all the time. You know, and you can probably tell, like, when you're in your teenage self or your inner child more so than your higher self. And I can all the time. I'm like, oh, wow, that was definitely reaction from my my teenage self that doesn't want to be controlled or that doesn't want to be told no or whatever it is, right? So understanding that, just that simple sort of blueprint that we're either operating from this wounded space or from a higher space, from our adult self. So just allowing yourself to make choices from there, bringing more light and consciousness. Now, the nervous system is a huge part of this because we can be conscious of what we're doing and still have a whole response and reaction within our nervous system that then creates this ripple effect, that creates this whole patterning that gets set off. So mentally, we can do all of the subconscious work we want to do, but if the body isn't brought along for the work, we're still having this, these flares in our system. We could have a racing heart. We can have a sympathetic response, like a hot response, or even a shutdown, more of like a cold response in our system. And that won't, no matter how much subconscious work we do, that's still going to occur. So the embodiment piece is really where we're working with the body to create safety in these situations so that it's not feeling like we get totally hijacked by the energy, Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's funny because you can have a reaction about something and then you can respond to something. There's a choice.
Yeah.
But there doesn't always feel like there's a choice. Because if you're getting triggered by something and you're unaware of the trigger, even if you are aware of it sometimes, your body can react.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if it's a limiting belief that you haven't worked on, that's still stuck, it's very difficult to talk yourself out of it.
Yes, exactly. There's this whole story and narrative that starts to play out. And even if you have enough awareness around it in the moment and you can see that it's playing out, there might not be enough safety in your system or enough of the right conditions, either resourcing, something around you that feels safe and rooting and anchoring, or, someone that you can co-regulate with, or even just the right conditions in your system and in your body to feel that you can step out of that unconscious space and into a more conscious space. It's tricky, when there's something that's playing out that's totally unconscious, because it's almost like this movie that you're watching play, but you don't know how to turn it off, you know? And yeah, that's a lot. It can feel really discouraging, especially when you've done a lot of work and you're like, this is still happening. And that's when I tell people it's almost always nervous system related, somatically influenced, because that whole response, there's usually a patterning that's a lived patterning in the system that's kind of we're tracking it. It's either getting hot or cold, or it's getting hot and then cold, and that's running the show, And so the more consciousness we can bring to these experiences, the more love, the more compassion, the more space between that reaction or that response, the better, because then we're not letting these unconscious parts rule. And I always say it's our unconscious parts or our wounded parts, if we're in a car together, we don't want them driving. It's they're not old enough to drive, or maybe they're not good at driving, and it's not what their role is. So we want to create enough trust and confidence in our higher self, our adult self, to allow those younger parts to just sit in the passenger seat, to say hey, you're along for the ride. I love you. You're here. I'm not shaming you, but it's my turn to drive. You don't need to worry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you most often see people bypass the body in astrology or spiritual work, even when they're deeply self-aware?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is a tricky one, because I think that the more aware we become, sometimes the more bypassing we can become. It's almost easier because we have these stories about things, we create stories about, even for me, my childhood was this. I had this medical trauma, or I had this pattern with my mother. And that can become a story, and it can become something that just kind of becomes part of our identity,
Yeah.
But it can also become its own program, that's running behind the scenes. So I think sometimes with these modalities, something like astrology, the more we know can sometimes hurt us in that we become obsessed with it as an identity. We start to wear it on our sleeve. And I think we've seen a lot of this over the last 10 years with astrology becoming more popular. People are kind of putting themselves in these boxes around, oh, I'm this or this, and so this is the way I am. But really, astrology is meant to be a tool for evolution, so it can be something that we identify with and that can bring a lot of permission and love and acceptance of our different patterns and parts. But it can also be something that helps us grow through them too, and I see with people sometimes, and I think this is not even just astrology, but just in general in healing work or self-development work, getting really comfy and cozy with the way things are, and even like these diagnoses or these patterns that we identify with, or these stories that we identify with, they can become their own sort of safe haven. And we forget that they're actually here to teach us, and we're here to grow and evolve through them, not become them, So that can be a spiritual bypassing is a big one. And it's just like, well, this is the way I am. And so I don't need to change that, when really it's meant to be a roadmap for how to evolve through it, how to grow through it, how to access the higher expression of it rather than the shadow.
Yeah.
And I think that it's so real to see people kind of getting overly comfortable or overly identifying with these stories and narratives. And so, just having more, the way I practice astrology is seeing it as truly like a roadmap for evolution. So the more we're able to use it as a tool for growth rather than just something to kind of live and exist within,
Right. Like, this is supposed to happen here. These are,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It can be, I think we can over intellectualize things sometimes, and even you see that a lot in like talk therapy. I did talk therapy for 6 years, and it was so great for me because I was at a place where I just needed to sort of metabolize and sort things out and really understand mentally what was happening in my life. And I needed that entry point into this work. But eventually we were just talking in circles, And so I think we can get caught sometimes at these growth edges of not quite wanting to exit the familiar space, even if it's not serving, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that certain modalities can be good for people in different parts of their life, and then it's okay to outgrow certain things.
Yeah.
And try something different.
Yeah. And I also think talk therapy is amazing as well. And if it's what you love and what you're comfortable with, I would recommend it over no therapy,
Yeah.
It's just really having the self-awareness to know when you're looping through something,
Because then it might not be as effective as you think it is if you're just talking about the same things over and over again.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're just paying someone to talk about those loops, and then it might not be actually making an impact.
Yeah. And a good therapist knows when someone's looping,
But I feel like there are probably a lot of not so great therapists out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a mixed bag, obviously.
It is. And I think there's, sometimes a not great therapist can do more harm than no therapist at all as well. I've seen that occur too. But yeah, it's really about finding someone that challenges you. Like, it should be uncomfortable, there should be a general level of safety and security in the space with the practitioner, but they should be titrating some of these more uncomfortable spaces, like kind of touching them and then pulling back and then touching it again. And that's like proper titration and processing is like actually getting into some of this, that's really uncomfortable, or challenging some of these thoughts and belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. What does this moment feel like in the body beyond the astrology itself?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it feels, when I tune into it, it feels like a mixture of heat and pressure and anticipation with a lot of uncertainty.
Can you explain why?
Yeah. And that, I will say that's a tricky place to be because we're sensing something on the horizon. Like I think a lot of people's psychic systems, nervous systems can sense that something's happening or that something's about to happen. But there's no clarity. So it's tricky to work with that level of uncertainty because there's just not a lot of, there's nowhere to place it really. The reasoning behind that would be one, Neptune actually just today on the 26th shifted into Aries, but it's been at this last degree of Pisces for a while, for the last few months. It dipped into Aries last summer. We had a moment with it, but in general, it's been at the end of a 165-year cycle for a while. And so anytime a planet, especially an outer planet, is at that anaretic degree, that last degree of a sign, especially Pisces, because it's also the last sign of the zodiac, we get this like sort of crisis point that emerges.
Okay.
And what it's doing is it's trying to teach us something. It's trying to have us really enter into the medicine of that exact degree of that exact sign. So with Neptune, it's at home in Pisces, number one. So it is surfacing so much illusion, delusion, fogginess, uncertainty, victim consciousness, escapism, anywhere in our life where we have been hiding or escaping or pedestaling someone to save us. It's going to be exposed. And so we've been moving through that for the last few years. We've had both Saturn and Neptune at these last degrees of Pisces for at least a year now. And it's been doing some work within our psyches. So there's that like fogginess and uncertainty around what's happening, and what's next, all of the unknown that's unfolding. And then we have this heat with all of the other planets entering air and fire. So what's significant about 2026, unlike other years, is that we have all of the outer planets, and the outer planets rule larger life themes, things we might not sense and feel on a daily basis, but are definitely impacting us on a cellular level. They're playing out in all aspects of life. They're just not as noticeable as the inner planets, the personal planets. But all of them are shifting into air and fire in 2026. So they're moving into this timeline of rapid accelerated change. So we are quite literally getting put into a rocket ship and blasted off into a new timeline. And that's obviously, we can think about that and say, okay, well, we can see that happening, with the acceleration of AI, the development of that, this singularity point that we're moving towards, which I have no idea what that really actually means. I don't know.
I don't think anybody does really.
Yeah. I think that we're at an unprecedented place, in the history of humanity. What that feels like in the system is it can feel like a sympathetic heat, like, I need to do something, but I don't know what to do and I don't know how to do it.
Because it's scary about what AI can do.
Yeah.
Like, is AI going to help somebody create a virus one day that like knocks out a huge portion of the population and then it's like doomsday?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, is that going to happen? Like, my husband and I talk about this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
AI can either, in the next 5 years, really help us reverse aging and be healthier and all of these things, or it can take a turn for the worse if it gets into the wrong hands and enough isn't done to prevent something like that from happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the uncertainty, right? Is that we've never been here before.
No.
And it's when we create something like this, because we did create it, it's man-made. When we create something like this that holds so much creative power, basically, it's also hijackable, and that's the thing with giving our power away to something like this, is that depending on who's applying the pressure or who's applying the instruction, it could go any different way, and I just don't know enough about AI to know if it has enough intelligence to like build in preventative measures against that? Like it might.
I feel like if that's possible, I feel like that should be what should happen. I feel like there should be limitations unless someone can also hack into that and make it so there aren't limitations. I don't know enough about it either to sit here and say that like something could happen or not, right? Yeah. So like we're both kind of like, well, we don't know because we don't. But I just think I try not to think about it because I'm like, if I think about it, there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
I have no control over the situation. Yeah. My husband thinks about it a lot and we talk about it sometimes. I'm like, I don't want to talk about this before bed.
Yeah.
Because this is just going to make like we have 2 kids. This just makes my head spin and go in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
But I guess I just hope that I can just hope that this goes into a positive direction and put my energy into that as opposed to put my energy into the negative because that's not going to do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the medicine of this time. And that's what embodied astrology teaches too, is it's like, how do we find our sense of center and empowerment even amidst all this chaos? Because the world is not going to become less chaotic.
No.
I think it's speeding up, quite frankly. I don't say that to create fear because I never want to do that with my messaging. But an empowered way to interact with that is to, one, be really boundaried with what we're consuming, what we're taking in, tend to our own systems, our own center, our own families, like really returning back to basics, back to, I think the South Node in Virgo has been there since last January, and it's really teaching us this, how to strip things down, to simplify, to return back to the basics, to return back to what we can control, because there's so much that we can't. And that lack of control creates a lot of anxiety in the system. And so let's go back to what we can control, what we choose, what we consume, what we take in. That's interesting
that you're saying that, because there's also, I'm dealing with my Malibu house should have just burned down because it's so contaminated with heavy metals. And we're suing California Fair Plan because it's just like they're not going to cover the smoke damage, and it's pretty much everything needs to be knocked down.
Oh my gosh.
And everyone keeps asking me like, how's it going with that? And like, what are you doing? And I go, we're going to sue California Fair Plan and I can't do anything about it right now. I'm sitting in this place of uncertainty, but all I can do is try my hardest, hope for the best, and hope that it works out because I can't control it. Yeah. Right? So like for a long time, I was living in a place of not doing that. And I've come to a place recently of like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I have to do. If I have to stick it out for a long time to get the money, I will. And I can't stress about it because what's that going to do?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I believe that. And I'm so sorry.
Me too.
But I mean, we've gone through such a collective trauma over this last year, and it's imprinted, like there's a lot of flight in our systems. There's a lot of flight just in the energy of LA. Like everyone's there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know where to go, what to do quite yet. A lot of people are still in limbo like you. And,
but it's okay to be in limbo.
Yes.
Like it's a place of discomfort, but it's okay to be there.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm going to get to the place that I need to be and come out of it even stronger.
Yeah. It's amazing. That takes a lot of work to be in that space.
Yeah, it was not.
And I will say,
it's been a year.
Yeah. And collectively, we've been there. Like this has been, I would say between 2020 and 2026, 2020 was similar imprinting to 2026 energetically and astrologically.
Interesting. Why?
There are some significant transits. So in February, we have Saturn and Neptune conjoining at 0 degrees of Aries. We had a Saturn-Pluto conjunction in January of 2020 that it's not the same. They're two different, there's Saturn is involved in both, but they're different. It's Pluto and Neptune, so they're different planets. But there's this dissolving nature to it. Like it's it's a point of big transformation. So there's something that's going to happen, and it might not even be on the physical plane. We might just be feeling it energetically and psychically, but there's a point where we begin to reset the energy. We start, like, quite literally start over. 2020 was not that. It was much more of a dissolving year, obviously. Like, so much dissolved, so much fell apart. We were like, our fabric
Doomsday.
Totally. And our fabric of society dissolved. We were like, what do we do when nothing is working, or like nothing is playing out like it usually is? 2026 is much more of a restart. But since then,
so it's like a positive as opposed to a negative.
I think it's positive. I really have so much hope and faith in where this is going. I have generally a very optimistic, I just think it's going to be fine, you know, but I will say the in-between space can be messy. And I think from 2020 to 2026, we've been in this, I call it the liminal space, which is, you know.
I talked about the liminal space with a few people. Yeah, it's so interesting.
It is. It's amazing. And Francis
You can
Weller's,
say what it is.
Okay.
It's for those who haven't listened to one of the other episodes and you don't know what the liminal space is, go for it.
Well, it's a space, it's the in-between space.
Yeah.
You know, it's where we have dissolved something but not begun the next thing. Mm-hmm. And it's a space of uncertainty. It's like we're floating. And because as humans, we have a natural tendency to want certainty. That's just, our survival systems are very old and we just operate within that space. Mm-hmm. So the uncertainty is uncomfortable because we don't know what's on the other side. We don't know when it's coming, you know? So it takes a lot of, it takes the right resources and conditions for you to be able to be in that liminal space and be okay with it. But if you can master that, you're building so much resilience in your system.
Yeah. And you can launch forward.
You can launch forward and you can start creating in the liminal space. I have so many clients who have been in the liminal space, and I'm like, it doesn't mean you can't create here. It just means that you have to become and befriend this space, knowing that you don't know when this new beginning is starting, you know? And so I feel for you, because I think it can be really dysregulating to be in that space and incredibly empowering. It's almost like I always compare our work right now to like Jedi work. Like, we're in training, right? It's like conscious warriors. We're in training to become emotional alchemists, you know, become masters of our own emotional experience, to not project on other people, but to really own our experiences and to own our reactions and our response. And I think if we can do that, we can enter this next phase of humanity, building an entirely new world. I really believe that. Yeah.
But what about those who aren't as, it's like tough because like some people are and then some people aren't. So it's
a good question.
What does that do?
What does that do? One, I believe personally that not everyone came here to do the same type of work, you know? So there are some people that are just here to have a good time. Literally.
Like their souls are just here to totally not evolve.
Like they're like, you know, I see it personally as we have different life stages. So we can have young souls and old souls and then very old souls. And so the young souls, you probably know some of them, they're just ignorance is bliss, just moving through life. Things just work out, you know, they're not having to go through these deeper karmic layers of things. They're not having to.
Not in this lifetime anyway.
Not in this lifetime, right? And so that can be like more of a younger soul. And that soul is just, they're building karma. And we can see a lot of young souls in the world scene. They're accumulating karma. And then when they enter their old soul era, they are going to be dealing with that karma. So we have to have both, you know, and
for sure.
In order for us to be old souls, if that's what you are, it's like, in order to be that, we have to have conflict and friction to work with.
So there needs to be the younger.
There needs to be the younger. And I think we come to Earth as an Earth school. And we come here to grow and evolve in really big ways. That's why it's scary and uncomfortable and why it's so chaotic. But if you incarnated at this time, you have a big mission. And whatever that is, I think it's unique to each person, and astrology can tell you that. But it's not meant to be just an easy walk in the park, you know? It's meant to be a school and a curriculum. And I think that Right now in particular, the curriculum is more challenging. We might be in like an exam phase, but
Lovely.
We're in exams. We're in finals.
It's fun. I love taking exams.
So fun. I was like, I was done with college, but thank you.
Sticking to astrology,
Yeah.
really quickly. I mean, we're talking about astrology, but sticking to specifics. With Saturn and Neptune beginning a new cycle in Aries, what kind of identity or way of being is? Did we talk about this?
No.
Okay. I'm like, with Saturn and Neptune beginning a new cycle in Aries, what kind of identity or way of being is being initiated, and what feels unsustainable moving forward?
Very good question. I think it's a great question. One, because it's very clear we're ending an era. And that's because we are ending a whole zodiac cycle with both Neptune and Saturn, because they're at the last degree of Pisces, and Pisces is the last sign.
And how often do we come to an ending of a cycle like that?
Yeah. So Saturn is like 30-ish years, like 27 and a half to 30. And then Neptune is 165 years. And so Neptune moves a lot slower than Saturn. Wow. And Saturn is we can feel that, right? We have our Saturn return. And I know you've talked about that in other episodes, but Neptune it spends 14 years in a sign. Saturn spends like 2.5. So they have, much different cycles. But they're both at the end of Pisces. So, Neptune just shifted into Aries. Well, it's shifted into Aries today. But when you're at that last degree of the last sign of the zodiac, there is a completion energy. So we have been in this death portal, basically just letting go so much, dissolving. Yeah. That's why it's felt like for some people, you're in the ocean and a wave comes and then just another one comes right away. It's like almost hard to kind of orient a little bit, or even, keep your head above water with the life lessons. But we're entering with this conjunction, which I'll talk more about, the 0 point of Aries. And that's the creator point. So that's the beginning of the entire zodiac. It's like the spark of life, and so it is a new beginning and it is a fresh start. And I think what we're leaving behind, especially when we think about the threshold of Pisces and Aries, it's creating form and creating life. So we're leaving this sign of dissolution and the unknown and the unseen into quite literally form. And Aries is the body and its identity, and it's associated with the first house. So it's connected to life and life force, leadership, the self. And so having these two planets, which have very different functions, Neptune dissolves form and Saturn creates it. And so we have both of these planets working together to create a whole new era, essentially.
Wow.
And this is a really, really, really rare transit. I think it's been, I want to say like 18,000 years since we had this. Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. So we're in a timeline that we've, haven't been in modern history. So to have these two planets doing this at 0 degrees of Aries, it's moving us away from the shadow of Pisces, which is victim consciousness, escapism, addiction.
Right, you were talking about before. Yeah.
Like the savior complex, martyrdom, things that make us feel hopeless and out of control and totally dissolved and helpless into a space of empowerment. And that's why I think, Aries has its own shadow too, which we can talk about, but the highest expression that this energy is like pushing us towards or leading us towards is self-empowerment and self-responsibility and sovereignty and agency and self-empowerment and leadership. And if you're someone who's on a path of, like self-development and healing and really wanting to, understand yourself better, then this is kind of like your push into more sovereignty, into more agency, into really feeling more empowered.
Fascinating.
And it's fire too. We're moving from all of the outer planets being in water and earth for a while into all of them being in air and fire. So
there's
we're moving from
big shift, like lots of shifts.
Huge. And I think a lot of people have been feeling that. Really, Neptune entered Pisces in 2011. So while it's
happening right now, or it already happened?
It's happening right now, like today, while we're on this call. Yeah. which is pretty wild. So it's been in Pisces since 2011, and it's been doing some amazing work in that it's been helping us expand our consciousness. It's really, I mean, so many people have had spiritual awakenings since 2011. We've had a deeper interest in the unseen and the unknown and God, source, faith, religion, all of those things, right? It's also expanded potentials, I think, for a lot of people.
Wow.
And it's led to a lot of spiritual bypassing and escapism and victim consciousness. I mean, we're seeing so much of that in the world, and it's just a disempowered state. And so I think with where we're headed, it's like, okay, we get to actually actualize change. You know, it's been like we've kind of been in this like waiting period, this liminal space. And now with this new era that's emerging, which will really take hold in 2027, but we're pressing the go button in February for sure.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love pressing the go.
Yeah.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
All right. So before we wrap, I wanted to ask you one more personal question.
Yeah.
There was one thing that you could tell your younger self. What would it be?
Oh my gosh. It would be to stay true to you. Yeah. I had just so many experiences as a kid and adolescence and growing up where I felt so strange and different. And I still just kind of forced myself into this box that was inauthentic to me, you know? And I think if I would have trusted more in my inner wisdom and my, you know, desires, my interests, that I would have been able to create a different pathway for myself. As well, I'm also grateful for the way that it played out, you know? But I would just say, go for it. Do the thing. Trust your gut. Stay authentic to you.
I love that. Authenticity is very important.
It is.
We don't want to like lose ourselves if people are trying to get us to be a certain way.
Yeah.
You just have to be true to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. We really need it because that's why we're here. You know, when you really zoom out, you're like, oh, I didn't come here to be someone else. I came here to really be me.
Yeah.
You know,
and need stop trying to be somebody else.
Yeah.
We get really stuck in that, I feel, especially with social media. It's like you look at other people and you compare yourself to them and you want to be more like them. And everybody is guilty of it, right? Like I find myself doing it sometimes. And I was like, I can't do that. Like I am me. Yeah. I'm not going to be anybody else. That's not for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's tough.
Yeah. It can be so tough. It's because we're naturally wired to be tribal beings. You know, we're wired to want to be a part of something, to belong. Our nervous systems feel better in co-regulation and in a state of belonging to something. And if we, you know, in tribal times, if we were kicked out of the tribe, that meant death, you know?
Yeah.
And even for our really young parts, we need connection and containment and co-regulation to stay alive too. Yeah. So it's kind of wired within us to be that way. So to step outside of the group is scary, but it's also liberating too. And you'll find another group, you know, you'll always find your right tribe of people.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to end with a little prayer.
Oh, thank you.
May we carry what we need, release what we don't, and stay open to the magic that is unfolding. Thank you for sipping your tea and sharing your heart with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
This is so lovely.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to No Matcha, No Mama. If you love the episode, share with a friend, leave a review, or come say hi. My Instagram is @Dina De Laurentiis. You can also find me on TikTok @No Matcha, No Mama. If you want to connect with my lovely guest, her Instagram is @Ali Ofstedal. And please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube or my Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And remember, thriving takes intention. See you next time.